everybody, welcome back to K&K Crochet. I'm KK.
I'm Kristen.
And together we're going to talk to you today about corner to corner crochet. So if you don't know what corner to corner crochet is, I would invite you to go look up some videos and learn about it. This is not a tutorial to tell you how to do it. This is some video about tips and answers to questions that may help you along the way to make it a little bit easier. So first of all, it's also called C2C. So if you've heard that and you've been intimidated to figure out how to do this, let me break it down for you. If you can do a chain and a double crochet and a slip stitch, you can do corner to corner. It is nothing other than that. It's a combination of that, but it's nothing other than that. And the combinations make these little cubes like this, these little squares, and they make this little stepping stone looking thing. It reminds me of Cubert, if you remember Cubert, the video game, and other video games. It's pixelated kind of like that, and so it just makes these little stair steps. So here are some things I would advise you to do when you're doing C2C. First of all, use the same weight of yarn throughout the entire project. It does not have to be the same brand of yarn, but it does need to be the same weight so that it looks good and it flows together, because otherwise you're going to have gaps and spaces. And don't depend on yarn labels, because just because it says it's a 3 doesn't mean it's a 3. It could be a 2. You need to look at it. I would say when you're starting to use a larger hook. And the reason I say that is because you're working in a small space and working all these stitches together, and a smaller hook you might have some trouble maneuvering it and getting through all the different spaces and getting things to flow like you need it to flow, and it will give your hand time to get used to and acclimated to working those kinds of stitches back and forth, and maybe not be as painful on your hand if you have trouble with your hand. And I do have trouble with my hands, but I love C2C, and I don't have a lot of trouble if I take breaks often. So that's another thing. You need to take breaks often. Otherwise, you'll look at the C2C and decide, oh, I can get through another 5 rows. And the next thing you know, the next day, your arm's hurting or your hand's hurting, and you didn't really think it was hurting the night before. You've overworked it. I would say start with stripes of color. If you go back and look at the purple blanket I made recently for donation, it was 4 or 5 different types of color and of purple, and it was just stripes back and forth, the corner to corner. That's because that way you don't have to worry about changing color in what's called a graph gan. A C2C is a blanket that's worked in the corner to corner stitch. A graph gan is a C2C that makes a picture. So when you see these graph gans or these afghans that have pictures in them, you can work pictures side to side in single crochet, but these are worked in, like this one is, the corner to corner stitch. And yeah, so that's that one that I'm working on, and you can see I'm doing camouflage and black, and that's it. But this one is not in stripes. This is a graph gan. It is a picture of a deer head inside of the black blanket. So I would suggest first corner to corner, work it in stripes. You will still have balls of yarn that you work back and forth with, but most likely if you work a band of stripes like I did on the purple, you do one color, you fasten off. You do another color, you fasten off. And that way you won't have all the bobbins that you move back and forth and flip with your stuff. Now, when you move on to graph gans, you will have lots of different colors. I would suggest if you're going to do a graph gan and you want to do a picture, that you start one like this that only has 2 colors. This is camouflage, even the black part inside of here is camouflage yarn, red heart, and this is black. It's the only 2 colors that's in the blanket. But it makes a beautiful graph gan of a deer head. So you can do that, and that's why I'm doing this one now. A lot less stress. I have several of them to make for Christmas, and I want them to be easy. So this is an easy graph gan. I don't want to have to do just stripes and it be plain stripes. I want a picture, but this is an easy way to get a picture. You have 2 colors and you work them, and you can find these graphs online. You can search pixel art, Pixel. You can find patterns on Etsy for sale. You can find patterns online for free. This one was online for free, and I'll put the link down below. There's a free version and there's a baby blanket, and a bigger version that's an adult blanket. but I'm going to use the baby blanket and just crochet a border around it because there's not that much difference in the sizing. And I was going to put a border on this anyway, so by the time I get a border, it'll be big enough for an adult. Like I said, if you can chain, double crochet, and slip stitch, you can do a corner to corner. Don't let it throw you off. You know what? Even if you wanted to and you don't want to, and you want to start super easy, pick one color, and do a corner to corner afghan. You will learn everything you need to know about corner to corner. The first time you do it, you'll work out all the kinks. You'll learn to love it. You'll figure out how to do increases and decreases, and you'll learn how to finish it off down the side. It's super easy. That was my biggest thing when I started. I was scared to figure out. I didn't think I'd be able to figure out how to stop and start. So you work this way up like this, corner to corner. You start at one corner, and once you get to this corner up here, then you start to decrease. And it's nothing more than just, instead of continuing on, you're slip stitching across and starting a new one right there. You're not doing anything different.
Oh, this is a good tip if you're like me. I got a mandala cake that had different colors in it, so it looks like you did stripes, but you didn't. Yep. And that's how I practice doing C2C. So that way, if you're like me, I don't like doing one colored things unless it's like specific. Like, I don't like doing blankets in one color. So
do a variegated. It'll still turn out very pretty.
Or a cake or something. And then that's what I did with my first C2C blanket.
I will say weave in your ends occasionally. Don't leave them all till the end. I had a blanket that, no doubt, I'm sure, well over 100 ends. It was ridiculous by the time I did all the graph Gans stuff with all the color changes. It had three colors, but even three colors, depending on how difficult the graph is, could have all kinds of ends because you have to start in a certain area. Like here, this is the graph. Here's another thing. Take the graph that you get and actually graph it out on paper. So there you see my deer head, and you see all these funny marks where I have marked off as I go through a line. And that way I keep track, and I'm marking at the bottom and the side here so that I know that I've done both sides. I've come all the way down that line. But you see, I mark it, and I usually just mark the one color. That's how you see the deer head there. Like I started at the bottom in the black until I got to the deer head, and then I work it up, and I leave the rest blank, and I know that that's black. But put it on the graph paper and weave in your ends, because right here you see you're going to get black, green, back to black, back to green, back to black, and that's separate balls of yarn so that you don't have to carry your yarn. I do not carry my yarn. I tried that the first time. It will show through, and it will be the bane of your existence. You will hate it. So another thing I do when I do tie off or finish a color, I leave a long string of yarn there to sew in so that if where the yarn connects, see like right here, where the camouflage and the black connects, it's not showing because the camouflage kind of has some black in it too. But if you have like a white and a black, it's going to show sometimes where they connect. And if I've connected it funny, it just depends on how you're moving. At times it will show a little bit of one or the other. And that way, if I have white, I can go back over the black and fill in and sew over those little pieces, and it'll be white where it's supposed to be white. And I don't have a lot of that anymore because it's a matter of just trial and error and figuring out what works for you. And the way that I change colors is when I go through the chain 3 on your stitch right here. Okay, so if I'm going with black here and I'm getting ready to change to a different color, this one's going to be a different color, I finish this stitch, I reach through this chain 3 and pull the new color through that last loop. Okay, not through the 2 loops of the double crochet. I finish it, I have a chain on my hook, and I pull the next color through this chain 3 and through the loop color, the one single loop that's left on my hook. Then I chain up 3 and I do 3 double crochet in that chain 3. And that's all there is to making a cube or a stitch, a block for corner to corner. It's a chain 3 and 3 double crochet in that chain. The only difference is figuring out how to start and how to end it. And it's simple. And there are millions of tutorials on YouTube. I'm not about to go and do that. You guys can do that. But get your graph paper. I get a big thing of it from Dollar General. And you can go online. I went online and found her graph and wrote it down. And this one was free. And then I charted it up the way I wanted to. Hers was a different color. You can do whatever color you want to do. Hers was, in fact, an ombre deer, so you can do whatever you want to do. But there are lots of pixelated things, and not just for crochet. There's lots of pixelated art you can find on Google and wherever, where you can choose to do that as your blanket. Just kind of be mindful of how big your blanket's going to be. Do a block for C2C and see how big your block is with that hook that you're using. Then count how many blocks are in the pattern. And so for each block on the pattern, each little dot there and all the other little blocks, each block is a corner to corner block. It is a chain 3 and 3 double crochet in that same space where the other chain 3 below it is. It sounds complicated. I'm making it sound complicated because I can't demo it for you because I'm not good at that. Find a C2C video. I promise you it will be super easy and you'll love it. And then when you figure out you can do graph Gans and you could do like a heart or a cross or whatever you want to do. You can make your own on graph paper. But it's beautiful the things you can make. I promise you you'll enjoy it. I promise you that it's easier than you think. You just have to take your time. And it's not mindless. You do have to take your time and focus. So, but if you have questions, feel free to message, email, whatever. And we'll talk about the different things. The one other thing I'll leave you with is that I found out when I first did this, because I have a blanket that one of the first ones I did a whole bunch at one time. And I wish I'd waited because then I would have known and done better, is that I don't just weave in ends. Even though you have so many ends and even though you can weave them in so many different directions, because of the way this blanket is made, I think it's harder to keep the ends in. So I do tie off. I tie my ends off in a way that is hidden underneath stitches or whatever. I go back underneath and tie in, and I weave them in. And that way I know for sure they're not coming loose, because in a washing machine, they can do that. So those are our tips today for corner to corner. Let me know if you have tips as well. I would say start with a solid color, then go to stripes, and then try an Afghan and see what you think. You might really like it. Not an Afghan, a graph Gan. You might really like it. And I've done several, and I really, really enjoy a graph Gan more than I do just a plain C2C. But I will do a C2C if I need a blanket in a hurry, because it works up fairly quickly. And I've done flags out of C2C, like little flags for the wall, and I've just out of pixel art. I've done
a wall hanging.
She did a pumpkin. I did a flamingo. We've done several things. So you can do just small things like that to get, when you first start, to do a graph Gan instead of a great big huge blanket, and it will teach you a lot about changing color and how to make it all work together. So don't forget to be kind, because
you don't want to be else's journey.
And let us know if you've tried C2C or if you've decided now that you might want to. Bye.
Bye.